Welcome to my channel Beyond Faces. I'm glad you're here. I just want to really appreciate that you're supporting this channel, you're watching and we are interacting, and that is quite encouraging to me. This is something that goes a long way to just keep me going and in this journey. But back in high school, there were creepy stories going around. And when we joined high school in the late 90s, we joined and were inducted in the spirit of the schools those days. In those days, it was common to bully or be bullied, and it was survival for the fittest. In fact, I remember in the earliest days of my life, in my high school life, in the late 90s, one of the inductions was that I had to wash footballer socks, those that were ahead of me, the cubicle I had, and the hostel I had been taken to. I had to buy some bread for some other Form 4 students who were in the cubicle. The point is, the senior most students were quite renowned bullies, and we had to toe the line as juniors to wait for our turn, maybe to exercise the same, or if we had our Saul to Paul moment, would come out as reformed people who looked at bullying as a retrogressive idea that whose time was far behind us. But otherwise, it was an interesting time in high school. Bullying was quite the order of the day for us who were in the junior classes in the late 90s. We were inducted into many aspects of the school, and we were in a boarding school, and so every aspect of that boarding school we were inducted in that in the boarding school aspects of by fellow students through, among other things, bullying. But there was something strange that was going on in school. There were creepy stories going around. So the moment we joined high school, that was in the late 90s, we were warned. And right before we left home, of course by our parents, we were warned to be careful of certain kinds of students. And these students were rumored to have powers that were inexplicable powers. They were rumored to be students who were involved in occultic activities. And we were given signs. One of the signs to identify them was that they had a lot of money. They were never running out of money. So when we joined high school, there was a particular student that fit this description, and we were given a summary of his activities, some believable, some unbelievable, but they were quite creepy. Some of the things we were told that about that particular student was that this student would actually disappear mysteriously in the night to attend their meetings, wherever they were attending the meetings with some of his kind. So the creepy stories were that this guy would disappear after everyone had slept, the lights had been turned off. The guy would just go to bed and disappear from the bed. So people would come, find that his bed was unoccupied, and yet he had just entered his bed, so he would disappear. And by disappearing, I mean that the guy would just melt into thin air. Those were stories. I don't know how true they were. Another thing about this gentleman that we had was that this guy had a never-ending supply of shopping. You know, in high school, the shopping for things that are necessities. Yeah, the guy was never running out of those things. The guy had Blue Band, the guy had jam, the guy had a stock of a never-ending juice, biscuits. Those things that in high school, in a boarding school in high school in Kenya, really count when you are in high school, and you know. So, and he had this particular ketchup that was rumored to never run dry. That bottle of ketchup he had. So some were saying the ketchup not running out was a sign that it had divine connections, that there was some connections to the paranormal, that the sacrifices this gentleman and his ilk had made wherever was the blood that was supplying that ketchup, or the ketchup was not actually ketchup, but it was some blood of sorts from sacrifices. And many other creepy stories that the guy, his money was quite alluring, and if he gave you money and you took it, you were hooked to be, and he would eventually convert you. So we had so many stories about this guy and many others, but I'm particular about this guy because when we joined high school, this guy was marked out for us, and we lived in perpetual fear of this guy. In fact, I remember when I was coming out of the hostel one time and walking to class, and I saw this guy walking towards my direction. I had to turn back and run, go around a building just to get to class. That's how dreaded our friend, the occultist, or was it the devil worshipper, as we call them, was feared. So it was an interesting time in high school about these very creepy things. And sometimes there were stories in the night that if we used to have some of us who would go to class and maybe do remedial studies for ourselves in late into the night, and some of them who had done these remedial lessons late into the night would report that they were seeing strange things, strange animals, but some of them would say that as they had just settled down to study in those classes, these desks and chairs would suddenly start screeching on the floor, and if you checked around, there was no one in particular moving the desks. There were so many creepy stories, and that our gentleman, the occultist, was connected and he was untouchable, that there were top politicians in the country that were in his cult, and there were very wealthy men that were in his cult. So there were stories about him all around. So we feared him to the extent that if he came to eat in the dining hall, and we used to use the queuing system of cafeteria, and if he came to queue behind you, most of us, what we would do would be to let him go ahead, wait for him to pass and be replaced by other people before you re-entered the queue. It was a creepy time in high school that time, and we used to call them devil worshippers. So this guy was a devil worshipper, according to many stories that we had at that time. So we wondered this mystery of devil worshipping, and the stories were there. Stories about how they worship. What are other stories like that? Their worshipping was done in very strange fashions. They involved themselves in strange rituals. Some of them being that they sacrificed children and that they walked into their temples naked and backwards. So we used to hear these rituals. So if you heard that about them, and you would be scared, you would live under fear. So it was an interesting time. And some of the reasons why that made us believe is that we had back home had stories of children disappearing in the streets, and people parking cars and luring children with sweets into their cars, and the children disappearing, never to be seen again. And those people who disappeared with the children were rumored to be devil worshippers. So the story of devil worshippers in school scared us out of our wits, and we really lived in fear at a certain time in high school. So our gentleman, the occultist or the devil worshipper, whoever you would like to call him, apparently seemed not to care about all these stories that were going on about him. He seemed to live his life without any care at all. In fact, he seemed to revel in the fame and to love the fear that his name sent around. Until one day, a teacher just confiscated some shoes that he was having, shoes that were not prescribed as school shoes. And when the teacher confiscated these shoes from the guy, the occultist, the devil worshipper, whichever you can call him, the guy simply just walked out of school. Literally walked out of school. He didn't take his box that was full of the things I have described that were never running out. He simply walked out of school barefoot, and he was never seen again. It was a very unfamiliar thing in school that time. Our man, the occultist, the devil worship, after sending chills down our spines and scaring us out of our wits, finally left school because of shoes. Just his shoes have been confiscated. And it was rumored that he had actually gathered many followers. He had inducted many into that cult or the devil worshipping. And he had made them perform weird rituals with him. And so, as he left, I am sure some of us breathed a sigh of relief. This is Beyond Faces. My name is Moses. My other name is Abukutsa. I hope you enjoyed that story. Like, share, subscribe, make a comment, and you can type something in the comment section. Otherwise, beware of whom you are working with and who your friend is. Just ensure you have the right company. See you in the next video.